Okay, so I guess everybody has a copy of the agenda. Sorry that I'm not there in person, but I thank you guys all for coming. So we'll go over the public comment, the board member comments, regular comments, and then most of the meeting is going to be on the personal mobile device discussion. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from September 16th?
So moved.
Okay, you got a second?
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
Great time.
It looks like there's nobody there for public comment, correct? They're hidden behind the podium. No. Okay. Board member comment and senior leadership comment.
There is much to be said, but I'm grateful for the time that has been put into this committee. This has been a while to make. I said that last time, but it bears true again. This will be my last meeting for CAC, but I am grateful for it. Put a lot of work into this committee. I have been advocating for you as possible. I want to let you know that I have advocated to the staff for potential value, but to remind staff, because we haven't been up and running, so kind of out of practice sometimes, remind them that they come to you for when they're pooling the community. So we had something that happened recently they didn't on board. I think that'll change now. So I look forward to whoever you have in this spot doing work, being a voice for the community, and just giving the board appropriate guidance on policy. They need it. Just recently we had a discussion on dress code, things in there we hadn't thought about. So and again, I'll tell it to you again in this moment. I have your attention. Do not be afraid to challenge the board and ask them to look at policy that they are not currently looking at. Something comes up, you see something in the wind, something that happened before. If you have foresight, you see something early on Series 500, then 300 kind of pokes out to you. Bring it to their attention. So just thank you for being here. Thank you for your service, and
Thank you for giving us all.
I believe I'm up next. I just want to thank Mr. Jay for his service to this committee, but to the entire community of Frederick County, and his influence and certainly his advocacy for students has been very, very strong and has been much appreciated. So thank you.
Okay.
I'm good, Lindsay.
Okay. All right. Hi. This is not at all awkward. I'm sure I'm up on the huge screen. So, great. So Celeste isn't here for the, she was out sick for the policy committee update. So did everyone get a chance to review the minutes that she sent? If not, I can run through them quickly.
you do a quick summary. It's probably good to have it on record. So.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So the meeting was called to order by Ms. Gallagher. They approved the minutes from September, no public comment. They went over policy 446, student suicide prevention and safety training. They are going to move that to a future board a future board meeting for a first reading. Next, policy 319, administrative, technical, and management group. This policy is about employees and positions included in the non-unit employee group. So they are also going to advance that policy to the meeting. Next, they went over policy 118, personal mobile devices, which is what we're going to talk about probably for the majority of the meeting today. And they are also moving that forward to a next meeting for February 26th. They went over policy 417, alternative education services, home and hospital teaching, and incarcerated students, and a draft of that policy is going to be presented at the next meeting as well. Policy 436, school-sponsored publications and NETI student journalist. That is also going to be presented at the next policy committee meeting, or the policy committee meeting in March. Any questions about any of those policies? No? Okay. Okay, so next we have the discussion on the personal mobile cell phones, mobile devices. So let me share the policy while we're talking about it. This is the red line version. Does anybody want to start discussing?
Because it's a new policy, there's no red lines. In other policies, you'll actually see things crossed out. So the blue means that this is all new information. So it starts with the policy purpose and then on to definitions.
Does anybody have any comments or anything they want to start out with?
I'm not sure that everyone had a chance to look at this in advance.
Okay.
So, does
Does anyone
anyone communicate or talk with any of their other community members? Anything about it?
The students did not like it, but I think that's pretty obvious why. I did have one question though. Under safety and responsibility H, it's the second to last in that. Yeah, it says, can I see that quick?
Yep.
It says, the posting of pictures, audio, or video of lectures or school activities to the internet/social media without permission of FCPS. So that's saying it's one of the things that students could be in violation of, something like that.
Yeah, so that's recording a teacher. I think that's fair. So like record a lecture, record a teacher.
Well, I mean, like in terms of like, maybe like a student council account or maybe like someone posting about the pep rally, would that need permission from FCPS since it's an FCPS event?
So like FCPS event, so in those cases, those probably will be posted by FCPS accounts, like student government account or like,
Okay, but-
bank account. So they would have
Alright.
prior permission cases.
All right.
That's how I interpret it. Now,
Okay.
it was there, I have to verify, but in practice, Dorco can check me on that one. But in practice, if you have a established channel communication, like say school news account,
Sure.
they're kind of giving that kind of deputizing. I think this is by individual students posting things that, but also, yeah, sometimes you have discussion because you mentioned a point there, like say you're having a school play, you're not post that.
Yeah, that's
So
what-
That's where I get hung up is
Yeah.
what is that line trying to define?
Well, I mean, I think it would make sense if it said an inappropriate use of school, blah, blah, blah.
So those are notes we can bring back. Did we go over the form for recommending notes of policy? We did take it all Celeste. Okay. So. Who's,
This, I think, this is coming for, if I remember correctly, this is coming for a first
first
reading.
reading, yeah.
So it's coming to the board.
Are there any other reasons on the students, why the students don't like it? I would just be curious. I mean, besides the obvious.
I can see that being a concern. I'm guessing you can clarify that language, that item. Say maybe it's a clarification. If you're at a school play and your best friend's there, he really just knocked out the park, and then what? So. I think lecture is pretty straightforward, but in my, clarification on that one. That's probably what. And I would love it if you had time to come to the board meeting to, when this is read, to make that mention up front. Because also it gives the board, it gives our committee visibility. It's important, and just it's, you know, it makes it easier for the board to, you know, have you in mind. Because honestly, without saying, there are 3 members coming to the board, and they're coming in. They're gonna get like, a better word, fire hosed. They have this. They thought it was just this one thing: the dais, it's the meetings, it's the notes, it's the policies. And they're gonna be like, okay, AIB, MSDE, okay, what budget? So they're gonna be like kind of like jumping. So in their radar of carrying things, CAC, once they're assigned to it, what's that? So I think visibility at the board meeting is a real good thing for this committee. Make this known. Our more senior committees often come by at least once a year. I think CCAC committee, even what's other committee come by? Policy committee comes by. But like, I think speaking to policies is what we do. This is the work we do. I think us having a presence at the board meeting is going to be big. It's a great point. So, especially if you can come, make a point that they'll think about.
That's when I went to like 11 o'clock. I was like,
No, you don't have to stay. No,
No,
look, that's the misnomer.
I know.
It's not IKEA. It's not a trap.
But I was like,
IKEA hides the exit, so you have to stay. It's not IKEA. That is right there.
I have a question. It's written very generally. So is it going to get more specific as I talk about it? Or I didn't really even see in here that like the students can't have the phones in the classroom.
That's a great point. So what'll happen? And the answer is yes. So it'll get more specific in terms of there'll be a regulation that follows the policy. It'll dive down more deep into like what happens at the school level. But you might get some tweaking to the policy. It's left to be higher level on purpose. It's the how happens at the school level with superintendent. So her team will go through it and they'll dictate the how it's carried out. This is the what it is. So you won't have, you know, everyday day-to-day action happening in this policy per se. So some tweaking, but there'll still be overarching higher level piece to this.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Everybody get to it? That one solved first. Can everybody get to it?
I have a question. I go back up just a little bit. I heard something in there about it, like unauthorized use of or logging into another student's account or releasing another student's information without their authorization. So are we going to enforce that? Because I know it is an issue in schools where, you know, some students will release private information about other students. And I don't know how schools deal with that currently, disciplinary wise, but how would that kind of be implemented? And how would that be proven?
So like, well, in that case right there is kind of one of those things like, you can't always find that.
Yeah.
It may happen at your knowledge, but if it is found, then it's found in violation. So it's one of the things.
So it's going to be like officially
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's there. Like if that happens, it's like that happened and somebody hacked somebody's account, said something mean or whatever. It wasn't me. So there's no rule for it. The follow-up's a little bit dry. When you have a policy in place and rules in place, you can make action.
That's great.
Yeah. So we'll have time with this one. Sabrina, Marco, what do you guys? About a month is the turnaround time for first reading, second reading, depending on the policy. It's the average time for first to second reading.
That sounds about right.
About a month. Yeah.
And in the notes that Celeste sent, it has the date when it was scheduled to go to, I believe, the first meeting. Is that, Lindsay, do you still have that up?
In
In the policy committee?
February 26th.
November 20th,
February 26th.
February 26th, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's the first reading for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so they'll be kicking the
You
can
said
around.
February 26th.
You got it. Okay, so this will be a little while, so we got time to work on this one. Jeez. So I guess we can get feedback on it from our community members. That's excellent. That'll be awesome. If you let them know this was coming, they can speak to current policy. That's marvelous.
I just ask, sorry, I finally got my computer to work. Just on the kind of ambiguity of it. So it's basically based on this D1, it's up to the superintendent to establish what the policy is,
What the
what
regulation
the
is,
regulation is.
like how it's carried out. It's supposed to carry out the spirit of this. It's kind of like the driving, action behind it. And then you see that in schools or versus like, DC versus, elementary school. It's kind of like how it's carried, versus like it's cell phone policy, like, that's still being worked out. Let's do one that's kind of closer to home. The dress code. The dress code, as it's currently being discussed in the policy, there's room for headwear for older students that's not for younger students. So there's differentiation that will happen at the different levels based on the regulations. It's kind of like it allows for differentiation. The policy can't meet all things at all times, but the regulation aims to be that uniform piece to where it's landed.
So the goal is to have this either by school level or by independent school.
Say that again?
I guess how is it going to be, is the goal to have this by,
I'll have a care.
really by
It
school?
would be leveled. It's my understanding it'd be leveled, so you would have a high school, then you'd have a middle school, and then you have elementary school. And the way I understand it gives a little more freedom as you get older in terms of access. But it would be specific to grade bands.
I think elementary is out of sight. Okay.
I like that. I think that's the piece that people are going to have more comments on is
Like,
regulations of it versus.
well, and you can receive those because the thing is, they do work hand in hand. So there'll be the pieces that we can speak to that, and there'll be things that questions they'll ask, really valuable and tricky things. Sometimes just the language. So if you guys can get a hold of this when you send it out, this is a public document, so they can take a look at it and ask questions themselves. Yeah. We'll get a best practice. If they've seen work somewhere else, they can recommend that.
I think the real work for this committee is just going to be reaching out to your different constituents and stakeholders and receiving feedback from them to help guide the decision to move this policy forward. So most of the work is in front of you and probably won't be accomplished this evening. It is going to be valuable for you and your different groups to gain feedback.
Sure. And I'll just share an anecdote from what I've seen in the community. Now, first I've heard of students not liking the policy, was just now. I read some students in the community, and they were kind of like, how it's kind of being implemented right now. They were able to it. So I thought it'd be a lot more pushback than what I've heard. So I'm surprised that, I think this has got a lot going for it as well. I think there's definitely room for improvement and tweaks, but I think the community is pretty much on board with it. I was surprised by it. I thought it'd be a lot of pushback.
Alex, can I ask, was there anything specifically that students didn't like about it or?
Well, I just don't think they like the full, I think in terms of what you're talking about, probably shouldn't say this, but I have my phone out a lot in class still.
Okay.
And I think that's because, they're doing the stage by stage implementation. It's not really entirely being enforced right now because it's in those early stages. A lot of teachers aren't really enforcing it. They're saying, put your phones away. But, our school, at least, Lincoln High School, they said, second semester, we're really cracking down. If you have it out, we're taking it.
Taking it.
Or they're doing something like, it's going to be more heavily enforced. I don't know if that's exactly
They
right.
won't be taken. Teachers will not be.
It's going to be more heavily enforced the second semester. That's at least what I heard.
Okay.
So I think a lot of what students are seeing right now is, yeah, teachers care, but they don't really care.
Okay.
So when you tell them, well, what do you think of the new phone policy? They're not really seeing the full aspects of it yet. And I think a lot of students, from what I've heard, they want to still have access to their phones in class. They still want to have the freedom that they still have right now. And I don't think they're seeing what kind of restrictions they're going to be seeing in the future with.
So two things to that. One, the kids I spoke to, they said that they were allowed to have it at lunchtime and in the hallway. So I think they were not having it, and they were from Walkersville. They were having it in class. They had hallway and they had lunchtime, which they seemed to be fine with. And I know I've advocated for that. I know it's recommendations from staff and from some of our stakeholders from focus groups weren't amenable to this one. But my concern was I really thought about teacher permission in the classroom. I think that it was concern from some teachers who spoke having a uniformity, like, everybody has to have them off. Get them out the way. That way I don't have to worry about being seen some certain way or having to worry about those gray areas. And I get that concern. It's easier if you just do it for me. Oh, the school says you can't have it, get rid of it. But honestly, I think, we're called to kind of there's an emergency, I have to. But I think we're called to, train our students on how to use them appropriately.
Right.
Please excuse me.
Well, I would agree with what he's saying. I mean, I think this is very general, so this seems fine, but I do feel like he's having it put away completely. I don't think I agree with that, because I think kids need to learn how to use it appropriately as well. I mean, we're not going to be in an environment where you don't have your cell phone ever, really. And I think, learning how to use it appropriately is also important. I don't really understand this one, installing or using unauthorized software. I think it's kind of odd, but okay. Are there any other comments on this?
What constitute for 12 disciplinary investigation? What constitutes a disciplinary investigation? Because I don't see maybe I'm wrong, but there's a lot of consequences in here. I don't know what are the steps that the teachers are able to take to enforce this policy.
I believe it'll be baked more into the regulation, but the conversation that I heard from the board, that the teachers would not be the individuals that would necessarily be taking the phones. I don't want to put teachers in that circumstance,
Sure.
but there certainly could be a discipline referral to administrator, which would then require the administrator to follow up on the referral.
I think that's under 2C. It just refers back to the student code of conduct.
Yeah.
But I guess, and I think we touched on it a little bit the last time, is the consistency of application for this. When you put out a policy, how do you train, school administrators to?
I agree with that. I think one of my concerns is with the differentiation of this policy and regulation. The general public doesn't see it that way. And so they want it all to be in the same place, right? But the problem is that, for instance, one of the schools that I represent, it seems like it's a little ad hoc. It does not seem like it runs how it should, like the rest of community runs. And so I think there's some issues that the community sees, well, why are we allowed to do that, but other schools are doing this? And so that's where I think the implementation is going to be the biggest key of communicating it to everybody, that it should be this one way. If it's not, then that's something to be brought up to administration.
With our middle school students, just from class to class.
There has to be consistency. I'm simplifying it, but it's much like the teacher that allows chewing gum and the other teacher doesn't allow chewing gum, and then you have the inconsistency, or the school that doesn't strictly adhere to it versus another school versus another middle school.
Yeah.
So that comes down to the training that we'll give administrators and teachers to ensure. And then there's got to be some accountability when schools elect not to follow a policy, not just this policy. We need to take action.
How does that work with other policies that aren't, if they're not followed? What kind of accountability is usually in place?
Well, many times they surface either through the principal or a parent or community member will reach out to one of our directors or actually the superintendent or myself. And then from there, we'll initiate action to ensure that the policy is being adhered to. So we see next steps is reaching out to constituents and then bringing that feedback and input from the community. Does that sound like a reasonable action forward?
Okay. Do you know when the regulation will be? Are they working on that now, or does this go
They're
forward?
exploring it, but typically the policy comes first and then the regulation. I know there's a lot of conversation with staff right now on what that'll look like.
The question around implementation.
Yes. So I think Mr. J, we're at the point where we're ready to get out there and gather some input and then come back together as a
I
group.
greatly agree. So I want to encourage you folks, this can be your carrot to your peers, but like, don't let this be the only thing you get. It's like, I know about, the feelings about, I don't know. We know class size is a thing, and we wish we had more money so we can do better with that. But like, if you have concerns about, things like, there's grading practice or there's some kind of, just get their feedback. A lot of times we have listening sessions and we get praise. We want to hear that too. So it's going well for me. I love this program you have going on. I want more of it. That's great. So, but I would just encourage you to use this as your care to get them talking. But then remember, we can get other feedback. We can get to the board. I think it's important for our committee to get other feedback, not just from policy, because we're two-sided. We recommend to the board recommendations, and we take direction. Our direction is policy. Recommendations would be great to have those too, so we can give that back to the board. And whoever your liaison is, I'm hoping they're gun-ho for you. I'm hoping they are vocal for you. And that if they do not, tell them I said to be so. I might just come out and do public comment. You should be vocal.
See, we've set you up for Thanksgiving conversation at the dinner table.
Yes.
Holiday party, some fun stuff.
Yes. That's the gravy. Passing policy.
When will the new board liaison be appointed?
At your next, they'll be appointed in December.
Right, so then the next one.
They'll be here at your next meeting. In December. So you could have a seasoned vet, you could get a newbie.
How does that process work? Does somebody volunteer, or?
So there's this giant hat, right? No, I'm kidding. No, actually, when I first joined the board, I was asked anything I had particular interest in. And mentioned that they had a committee that was required by law, didn't have one. And I was like, I want that one, the one that you're supposed to have, you don't have. So that DeMarco and I spoke, and he kind of gave me the lay down of what the policy committee, what the committee was for CAC, and what had occurred in the past, and what were some of the wins, some of the losses that it incurred, and we endeavored not to have that happen to us again. We had some growing pains for sure, but testament, we stand here 4 years later, still here. I'm leaving the board with the CAC committee intact and thriving, and I couldn't be happier about that. Marco, thank you. Sabrina, thank you. These two right here, I haven't provided energy, I'm sure, but for level-headed policy and support and just absolutely lifeblood, it's been Dr. Marco and Sabrina have kept us afloat. So I want to thank you for the report. They've been amazing. They've been champions for you. Dr. Marco has engaged everyone from policy committee to the team, our communications team, logo set up to get people here to speak. You actually can get speakers here. If you have somebody you really want to speak to, they can come out and talk to you. Sabrina literally keeps us afloat. So without Sabrina, I know I'd drown. So I thank Sabrina for being that excellent life preserver. And just, it's been amazing to have the community here with us. So you have so much ability to make impactful change in this county. I want to thank you for being on this committee and seeing the value in this committee. Well, you'll see policy as something that's important. We spend a lot of our time doing that. It helps drive us to a better impact for our students and for our community. So thank you all very much. Thank you so much for taking the helm on this one. It is so needed. Thank you for driving it. Celeste, thank you for taking our policy committee position. Thank you all. Christopher, are you doing secretary?
Yes.
Thank you so much for doing that. We didn't know what was said. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. I am so grateful to see you all here. You have no idea. We began here in a real quiet room. Then it was a crazy room. Then it was a quiet room.
Yeah.
And now it's a solid, firm room. So we're grateful for that.
Thank you, Mr. J.
Great. That was an excellent speech. Since we have some time, should we do the other three policies that Celeste mentioned are coming up in November? They're fairly short. Here, we'll do fire drills first. So this one is from 2017. So just let everybody read it and then let me know if you have any recommendations.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
This gets the Mr. J thing. It's required by law. We should do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't have frequency. I don't know if that would that be in the regulation or
The state requires 10 a year.
I was gonna say.
in a year? Okay.
Down from that.
To have those time you go outside for those drills, it'd be just drills, nothing else. No popcorn, no dryers, no candles, nothing.
Anything else on this one? Okay. All right, and then the other one, transportation. Actually, this was the other version.
And this one's pretty much governed by state law as well.
Okay. So nothing really to add to this one either.
There are regulations, I believe, that go along with both of those. So on your review, if you pull up the regulation also, that will give you some of the how, the process.
There was one weird paragraph, 441, 1B, the second paragraph. Although schools have different starting and closing times, it's an expectation that students should not arrive at school more than 30 minutes before instruction begins and should leave school grounds within 30 minutes after instruction ends, except when the student participates in school-sponsored or teacher-supervised activities. I say this coming from Parkway Elementary, where for 2 or 3 hours after school, kids are playing on the playground, which is neither sponsored nor supervised by any staff. This policy about transportation seems like it steps on that, and I'm just curious why that's in this policy, what it's trying to, or is Parkway not allowed to have kids on the playground?
I would think we would have students being permitted to be on the playground after school. I think this is governing when school buses can drop off and pick up.
But because this doesn't, like, because of what the language of this, it doesn't say that to me. As either a member here or a parent of a kid who was there for a half hour after school today, or 35 minutes. So,
Yeah.
like, this is the thing of, like, I get if it is a must be on the bus, if you are a walker, some parent's responsibility after that window of time makes sense.
It's not
Because
explicit.
it does, the policy does in many cases say, your kid's your problem until they walk in that door. When they come out the door, they're your problem again.
It's a good point.
So to me, it's like, I get what it's trying to say, but it's not what it says. It tells me I can't take my kid to the playground. And that to me is if FCPS or the school administration has a problem with it, they can bring that up. So I just don't want them to be inadvertently saying kids can't play at the playground unless they mean it.
I wonder if out of curiosity, I wonder if the regulation for that has that clarity in there. He's going to be backtracked to the policy. I imagine that the regulation would say something to the effect Marco was saying about how, for buses. But sometimes people.
This is just me wanting to understand that I will be in violation of that policy in perpetuity because my kid hangs out at the playground.
Right, and in all honesty,
We'll let you off.
yeah, there are tons of people write policies, and sometimes we miss it.
Yeah.
Which is why we had that renew period.
Career of writing policy. We miss stuff a lot of the time. This is just one of those things where, because that one paragraph is very near and dear to my 7-year-old's heart.
Something we definitely look into.
Yeah.
It's about point.
That just seems like, it's much like in the other policy we were looking at where you're like, I don't understand the unauthorized software. It's like, it's my phone. If I authorize it, it's authorized. It feels like a cut and paste from something else. That's the only thing when I read through this where I was like, just didn't fit. But everything else to me read.
And students will go out and play soccer on a weekend.
Yeah.
Right. We wouldn't want to run them off.
I have a question. You say that a lot of these policies are derived from state law. Is that under the State Board of Education or the Maryland General Assembly?
It's mostly under COMAR, Code of Maryland Regulation, which is driven by legislation. There are some incidences when MSD will come out with policy. Bullying and harassment is a good example where MSD drives the policy. So Alex, it's actually both of them that have some contribution to it.
Marco, you gave me just now, makes me wonder, just for my clarification, AIB can't drive policy. They can only drive finances, right?
Well, they've been given authority by legislation, a certain amount of authority by legislation, and that's right now seems to be a lot of the tug of war between MSD and AIB as to who can do what, and that probably hasn't been thought out.
I was hoping it was a point of clarity. Oh yeah, I didn't see that. Now the clear divide. No, okay, clear divide.
Can I ask what AIB?
Oh, sorry.
You caught me too quickly. Mr. Jay?
You know what? And I'm the number one person to kill acronyms. I'm so sorry. Hold on. 1 second.
It's the accountability and implementation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, look at me. I'm like, we just hit. I don't say the acronym.
Could you say that one more time for me?
Accountability and Implementation Board.
Yes, they came out of the blueprint. Yeah.
We run Howard County's Head Start program. Office I work in. So
So, thank you for
I know that all too well.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that acronym. Just for folks at home. Yeah, I was wondering if there was so as Dr. Bergman pointed out, they're kind of getting crossing each other's turf at times. So that's a little bit. So have mercy with your new board members as they navigate those borders. A little bit mercy, not a lot, just a little bit.
Are there any other comments on the transportation policy?
So that was the one part, I read through this one a little bit ago, and it was the one thing that hung out because it just didn't make, it was the random outlier, and the rest of it seemed pretty sensible and straightforward. So I don't have any.
Alrighty.
Can I just, just want to think on line F. Says it's recommended that parents walk with or make provisions for providing assistance for taking very young children to the bus stop or school and meeting the bus. It just feels like it's weird as a recommendation. Not that I have a good suggestion. I just thought it read interesting place for it. Is that typical to find recommendations in policy?
One more time.
I think you'll find that. I certainly don't want to speak to the individuals that wrote this, but I think they want to encourage best practice, and
Right, it makes sense. Like, I get it. It
And
just
they-
seems like a,
they know they can't enforce it.
yeah.
Parents are not to take their little one.
Yeah.
It feels to me like fairly standard boilerplate to reduce liability. Hey, I told you behave properly.
Right, I get the intent of it.
Sure.
It's just that's what information.
Yes.
Again, not that I have a solution, suggestion or solution, but just pointing it out. Food for thought.
And in a previous district that I worked in, don't hold me, it's been so long ago. And once you hit 50, things, but they did require kindergarten or staff parent or an adult at the bus stop.
And then just also, there's no period.
One of those, huh?
And I think it connects back to B, what we were just talking about, but the first paragraph, that parents are responsible for the safety and conduct of their children from the time they leave home. So it connects it back. I'm wondering if that should be connected together.
Yeah, maybe that might
Yeah.
with that versus, I think you're right, I like that.
Note, in 441.2, the eligibility kind of outlines A, elementary, secondary, C, walking distance, and then it just goes into D. I don't quite understand what it's saying here. Like, it's giving the eligibility for all the students, and then it's just saying all students who attend designated primary school provided bus transportation. But the prior three are kind of outlining. Does that make sense?
Is that because not all have primary schools?
It seems like this should go up here.
Yeah.
Maybe under
Just the way that it's
elementary.
written is a little confusing, I think. To be honest. Maybe because my kids are in an area there is a primary school, it's just elementary. So when I read that, I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't apply, I guess, to every, district.
As an example, because I live across the street from Harvard School, the bus is
CPS.
I mean, could that just be included with? Well, right.
I'm wondering if that should have been possibly before elementary, so that it's in chronological order, because primary would be before elementary.
It
So
should be
that may,
It should be
so that may help.
That would help, because then I'd be like, well, that doesn't play with this, and I'd just jump right to elementary, you know what I mean? Whereas when it's after walking distance.
It should be a primary school space, all suited to attend designated. Right. And then reorder BC.
Folks, yeah, there we go, there we go. See?
If I don't understand it, there's someone else that's not, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
also like, what, you know? So maybe it's just me, that's why I had to say.
We're here for it.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay. Any other comments on the transportation policy?
And again, I think we have time before the next policy committee meeting, where Celeste will be a part of that meeting. So if you have any comments, definitely connect with Celeste and include, of course, Lindsay on the communication and myself and Mr. J, if you'd like, so that we can all again, be aware and share information forward so that she can discuss it on our behalf, policy committee meeting.
Anything else for us to discuss? No? Okay. So the meeting is adjourned, and then the next one is February 10th at 6 o'clock.
And that will be before the personal mobile device will be reviewed. So that will give us time to reconnect and discuss that. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the
Thank you
gift.
so much.